should all be able to see my screen with slideshow on, can you?
Yes.
Perfect. That's
Yes.
good. Great. So thank you so much for attending. There we go. I'm on the right slide. It was a great opportunity to take you through where we are with the LDD automation project and kind of give you some real insight, because it's so painfully close now to being delivered in some form that it kind of makes sense for everyone really to start to understand what it feels like, where we've had to go with it as a temporary measure, and what that means kind of going forwards. So first things first, I do have to tell everyone that this is being recorded. If you don't consent to being part of the recording, although you shouldn't appear on the recording, I hope, famous for last words, isn't it? But if you don't consent, can I invite you to leave, and then we'll let you have a copy of the recording to catch up on it afterwards. The second piece of housekeeping very quickly is that we're expecting this to last about 30 minutes. It may drag a little bit. If you have specific questions, please use the chat column, the chat conversation piece in Teams. If you don't know where that is, if you hover your mouse in the middle of the screen, another bar of things will show up, and it's normally third from the right, which is show conversation. If you've got any questions, please pop them in there and we'll come to them at the end. And any we don't get a chance to come to, I will con Alex and Craig into replying to you in person afterwards. That's the more straightforward housekeeping complete. So format very quickly, we'll give you a quick project overview, and then we'll talk about how we've pivoted and why we've pivoted. Craig's got a demonstration that he wanted to give of the Kibana dashboard, and then we wanted to talk about the next steps and what this will really mean for users. And most importantly, how we get on with it, you maintaining the LDD up to date going forwards. So I think the first and probably most important message to land with you all is that once we've gone live, the LDD won't any longer be referred to as the LDD. Whilst I'm not going to shoot anyone for still calling it the LDD, we've decided that it should be branded something a little bit more centralist because of how it gets used. So we're calling it the Planning London Datahub. Interestingly, this is the only project we could we've got that has been used by so many different suppliers, and these are all bar one of the active suppliers in London at the moment, and they're all identified at the bottom here. So just a very brief overview of what the project really was about initially, because we're about 18 months in now. We're taking the existing London development database and, following a discovery, finding ways to automate the flow of data from the generators of the data, i.e. the applicant, through to our database. It basically, to be successful, it needed to operate across all of the planning authorities in London and provide a way for people to visualize and extract. And if I'd rewritten these slides again, I'd put it the other way around: extract and visualize the data through some form of dashboards to replace the reporting tools we use, and enable ways for us to amend the data in databases. And then, most importantly, it needs to have a mechanism for us to integrate with all other applications that we're operating, and I'm sure other external parties who currently link into LDD, so that there's a seamless journey of data throughout the planning system. Before we go too far into it, I do have to highlight that there's two really critical things that have forced us to think about how we land this project and land it cleanly. The first, obviously, all of you, well, I'm guessing most of you are sat at home, so there's the clue that COVID-19 hit us. But secondly, and probably more of an internal problem, is the fact that there's an obligation on us to decommission the server that the current LDD is on. And anybody who currently supplies data to the LDD will be able to tell you how often they go to log on and the server's gone down or something's fallen over. It's because it's the only item on one remaining server, and the GLA are very keen to decommission it rather than have to regularly send somebody into the building to restart it. So it's looking at decommissioning within the next month. So hence we've had to find a far more effective solution. So to talk about the pivot, firstly, to understand why and how we pivoted, you probably need a little more depth of understanding of our project. Firstly, I've got a little man over here. It could be woman, could be anyone, who is the applicant. And the project asks the applicant the right questions on a planning application form, takes that data through planning back office systems and spits it out into our database and consequently the world. Now, there's lots of nuances around this about whether back office systems are appropriate for it, upgrades that are required, and also the real question about how the amendments to planning applications get completed. That being said, we've addressed a lot of them through this project, but we've essentially, as a result of these two pressing pressures on us, had to split the project into 2 phases, and not the 2 phases that we initially thought we were going to have to. So our phase 1 of our project is actually the second half of the project, which is taking the data from back office systems and spitting it out into our database. This has got some really interesting outcomes attached to it. But first of all, it really literally only takes the data that's available on your website, but it takes it in digital format, which will mean that you'll actually see a lot less people screen scraping your websites and hopefully speed up their capability. But probably more pressingly, it means that in terms of the LDD for you guys, those of you who have to complete it, there's going to be a new process, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then the phase 2 is actually the massive value add, which is the applicant answering the right questions to mean that LDD officers aren't going to have to spend a lot of time looking for data. So I know Molly wants to jump in just a moment, but the phase 1 is happening now, and Simon's going to talk you through what that means in just a moment. But and then once we're in the process of completing phase 1, the current LDD will be switched off on or around the 19th of June. So that's terrifyingly close. So for any LDD officers out there, it will come down to a judgment call as to how you want to transfer the data. And if you're a long way behind, we need to be talking to you about how we're going to do that, so that you're not killing yourself between now and the 19th. Phase 2, there's still a little bit of a political journey we need to go on, but we're thinking around targeting roughly the 1st of August. Molly, do you want to jump in?
I do. So this was just to kind of reiterate that what this will accomplish is it will allow us to turn off the existing sort of old LDD database, turn on our new and improved LDD database. And that new LDD database, as Peter has said, will have all the plumbing in place to all of your back office systems so that it can receive all of the existing data that's currently collected on applications with the questions as they stand. So no changes to the planning application in phase 1, but the data will flow from your back office systems to our database in a streamlined way that proves that plumbing works, basically, and brings in that existing data that's key, that already does come in via planning applications into your back office systems. And then phase 2, as Peter has said, is about turning on those questions, which Planning Portal have already incorporated technically into the planning application forms. And for those who are newer to the project, these are the questions required to complete the LDD in essence, but asked of applicants up front in order to allow them to own their own data and to allow them to supply that in a machine readable format so that it can travel from their applications through to the final database without the need for so much manual input. That was just a sort of reframe of what we're talking about here.
So that in practice, whilst there's still a little bit of refinement around the phase 2 elements, the phase 1 on its own will be quite dramatic. So, and we think there's going to be some really interesting outputs. Sorry, Craig, I'm going to deny you having control for just 1 second because I've got another slide that I just want to touch on.
Sorry.
Sorry. So just for very quickly, the project pivot, what will it mean for users? Well, in practice, for users of the LDD data, it will give them that live feed of planning applications without having to operate their own screen scrapes around everywhere. You'll be quite horrified when you know how many screen scrapers there are operating on each of your websites at the moment, whereas a RESTing API will actually give them that full data set and hopefully stop them, and actually probably a bigger data set than they have, but actually stop them needing to screen scrape. And we're hoping to see some really interesting behavior change as a result. It will give them more of an analyzable data set, because actually things like conditions currently, because of the way they're held in PDF documents, are almost locked in. But more importantly, there's some work that they're going to need to do about repointing their systems to the new system at the appropriate moment. And secondly, more importantly, not secondly, because I've already done a few, the data set will be dynamic. So there won't be a lag that there currently is that they take from the LDD. But for LDD officers, in this intervening period between stage 1 and stage 2, and there was always going to be a transition of some variety, there's going to be a need that we will need you to still answer the LDD questions, but only in respect of reportable schemes. So the way that will in practice work for you is we will have a system that will spit out a spreadsheet, and you'll just need to complete the spreadsheet and return it to us, and we'll put it into the log stash ourselves. Also, and more pressingly for you guys, any of you who run reports based on the data in the LDD, and I'm very aware that there are a lot of people that do, and rely on business objects to do it, or any other system that you've got, there may be a need to recreate monitoring reports. And we're working on setting up Kibana, which is what Craig will show you next. And Craig is here to support you with doing that work, but I just have to highlight that it's a limited time resource. So Craig, you can ask for access now.
Thanks. Colin is just going to do a bit first on some of the technology behind this. Colin?
Yeah, thank you. Is there a slide in that deck? Or?
Hold on. Peter, I'm going to stop control for a second. Hand back to you if you could put it on there.
Okay.
Sorry.
You know that bit where we said that we would not run a test of this?
Yeah.
Not my idea.
Perfect. That's the one. Okay, so this is the obligatory techie picture to try and describe what we're doing behind the scenes. But in essence, what we've got is everything that's in a white box is what we've currently implemented. The things that are in the kind of greenish-y coloured boxes are things that could happen down the line. So the technology that we're implementing enables, for example, to the right of the diagram there, apps. So this is what Peter was alluding to plan tech companies that might be using screen scrapers, or citizen coders that might be using screen scrapers to understand what's going on in their borough, now have the opportunity where actually they could build proper apps that take a feed from an API and various other things in order to deliver what they want to do. And then on the far left side, the green box there means that additional data from GLA and others could be fed in to help support, further add further dimension to the data. But what we've delivered right now is what's in the white boxes. And the red thing at the top there is what will be the public interface as well. So there will be a mirrored copy. In essence, at the heart of all of this is an Elasticsearch index. And that's just the thing that is, in effect, that's the new database. So that is replacing the old traditional relational database that was previously there, provides this Elasticsearch, which is, for those who are interested, is a document-based indexing system. So in effect, a planning application is stored in its entirety as a single document, and then the Elasticsearch component allows us to find different documents based on different criteria using kind of full text search queries and other specific queries. We used Logstash on the front end, so that is the connection that the back office systems will hook into in order to push data through, and that can happen automatically on a scheduled basis. And then we have Kibana, which is the main interface that's going to enable you to interact with the data, run queries, generate dashboards, etc. And that's what Craig is going to go on to now to demonstrate.
Thanks, Colin. I'm going to try, yep, that's the one. I'll request control in a second, Peter. Yeah, as Colin mentioned, one of the key tools that we have is Kibana. And in that we have a dashboard. The Elasticsearch company describes dashboard as a collection of visualizations, searches, and maps, typically in real time. Dashboards provide an at-a-glance insight into your data and enable you to drill down into details. With the dashboard, you can add visualizations, save searches and maps for side-by-side analysis, arrange dashboard elements to display exactly what you want, customize time ranges to display only the data you want, and inspect and edit dashboard elements to find out exactly what kind of data is displayed. Okay, I'm going to try and share my screen now. I don't know if I need to request control. Let's try this. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, Craig.
No, okay. Let me request control.
If I stop sharing and then you just share your screen, go for it. You don't need to request control then.
Okay. Can you see it now?
No, try again. Ta-da! There we go.
Excellent.
Don't accidentally look at your emails.
Okay, so this is Kibana. Now there's a lot we can look at, but I'm going to focus specifically on the dashboard today. So I'll click on that. Now we've got a main dashboard set up, and that displays some of the data that we've pulled over from the existing London development database. Now, this dashboard can be set up any way you want. You can set up multiple dashboards. Say, for example, you wanted to look just at details of your local plan, or any specific area of planning that you wanted to look at. We've got a kind of general overview here, and there's lots more we'll be adding to this in future. So let's have a look at some of the ways we can use the dashboard. So here we have a map. I'll just put that in full screen. And we can zoom in on some of the details here. So this is just a map of all the applications that we've pulled over from the current LDD. If we go in towards City Hall, and we'll look at one of the points on here.
Are you choosing City Hall because you're trying to remember what it was like to go to the office?
Yeah, I'm dreaming. So let's look at one here. So I can click on this application. It brings me up some details. So shows that we've got a conversion of a flat and vacant commercial space in Southwark. Now, if we wanted to filter down and just look at everything that's in the Grange ward, you can just click here and give it a second. And if I zoom out, you'll see it's just filtered out everything there. So we've just got the Grange details.
Just so we're clear, we've only got a very limited data set in here at the moment. We just haven't copied the entire LDD over yet. So hence it's just pulling those ones, yeah.
So that was just a bit on the map. I'm going to show you some other things that will relate to that. Just minimize. So you see I've still got the filter Grange here, and it's filtered out everything else on the dashboard. If I remove that filter, it'll return to show all of the information. Just reduce, just minimize this. There we go. Okay. Now we can also do a text filter if we want. So for example, we could look for the borough field. And I've done a search before, which comes up. And let's say I wanted to look at Tower Hamlets, where I am now. Enter that. And that's going to filter in a second all of the data for Tower Hamlets. I'll just zoom out. And then I can add as many filters as I want to get down to the data that I need. So say, for example, I wanted to look at street name. I've got the options here of the fields available. We'll say is, say, for example, and then it shows me just the data for what's on my road.
So if we were to take this to kind of more of an analytical data set, which I'm guessing most of the people on the call are probably interested in, it would enable you to look at how many units were commenced in any year, or how many parking spaces were created.
Exactly. We've not brought through all of the data that we need to do. I need to look at that specifically, but absolutely, yeah, we can get down into that data once that comes through.
And so each of these dashboard things, these visualizations, a local planning authority could set up to be whichever one it is that's really important to them.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't mean to interrupt. It was just to make sure that that message was put across.
I'm just going to update this.
It's always good that tech seems to slow down whenever we try to show off tech. It's great, isn't it? I think what would be really good is if you could just scroll down on your screen, just show people the other things that you've got on here already.
Yeah, so I'm just going to come on to another thing that I was going to do there while that updates. There we go. So we've got, for example, here, we've got commencements graph here and completions bar. We've got some basic data. Sorry, it's taking a while to scroll down. I think doing it in conjunction with the Teams call is slowing everything down. We've got an applications count per borough here. So if, for example, I wanted to look at, say, commencements in 2018, filter that out. And and if I wanted to look at, say, Hammersmith and Fulham, click on that. Okay. It's just taking a second. There we go. And then if I want to extract this data using our own system, we can do a quick download here and download a CSV that is bringing the data through. And then I'm not sure if you can see my Excel spreadsheet.
Oh no, it's on a different screen for the purposes of Teams. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
it opens.
We can pull out that information if you want to look at that just as raw data in your own system. Then that's something.
Do you just want to share your Excel screen so that people can see what it looks like?
Sure. Yeah. Let me hold on. I just closed that. Let me download it again.
So if you stop sharing this screen and then start sharing the other screen, everyone will be able to see it.
Here we go. You should hopefully be able to see that. So yeah, so it's just a small selection of data. We can amend that so you can have as much or as little data in there as you want, but that's just a brief view.
So as we get more and more data in the data set, actually it would just add more and more columns to each of these, so you'd be able to pull out the full data set to analyze it if you wanted to.
Yeah, and we can set it up so you can look at just a few fields or all of the fields, as many as you want to see.
Is fantastic. So for all of you viewers, the important point is that the querying tool, although we've set it up just to show a few things in a really simple way, is as good as well. It's probably better than Business Objects because it's a bit more flexible. But actually, once the more data starts to appear in there, we'll be able to develop and present insights into it. Yeah. That the message, Craig?
Yep.
Perfect. So not that I think you're interchangeable names, just so we're clear. So should we move on to the rest of the presentation, because I'm very aware we're whizzing against tide.
Sorry, Peter, could I just add in as well? Also, there's the REST API that directly queries Elasticsearch as well. So actually, it would also be possible for boroughs to be able to link in their own systems as well directly to take a feed of data back.
Which is great. So actually, if say, for example, I know Hammersmith and Fulham have got a system called CoreView as one of their reporting tools, they could connect straight into our data set if they wanted to.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Great. So I think the important point here is that from my point of view as a user, I am obviously going to have to, I'm going to be wanting to build dashboards that suit the GLA's interest. But from boroughs, it would be really good to kind of start getting the synergy around what dashboards you're going to want, because we're really keen to make sure that the right queries are there so that you can monitor in real time the things that you're expected to monitor for your AMR or for whatever purpose. So moving swiftly on, Simon, did you want to take over and talk about next steps?
Yeah, will do. So I've got two main slides about next steps, one for the boroughs and one for ourselves. And they all basically centre around this idea of needing to get the APIs out there as soon as possible so that we can start collecting the data in phase one. and then we'll come on to phase 2 stuff at another time. So the main thing that these, certainly the first 4 all relate to, are about the API, and the most important one right at this moment is about getting that firewall open to our new servers. So you may have already had some information through from your suppliers about that, but if not, you can just get those open as soon as you can, and that will then save us and the suppliers a job of waiting for that to be opened before they can do the installation. So I'll come on to that in a minute. Obviously, if you've got a change control process, get that in as soon as possible. And if you need any help from us, please let us know, and we can help with the details of that change control process. And yeah, likewise, just working with the supplier to get that install date booked in as soon as possible. And the 4th one is about the code mapping. I'm sure Alex and Craig have been badgering you about these code mappings. So that spreadsheet you've been filling in is basically something that will help you guys to complete the code mappings in your systems. So I don't know if any of the uniform boroughs have seen the documentation out that's come out very recently from Bruce Armstrong, but that basically is a document that runs through about how you need to complete it based on the information that's in those spreadsheets.
Just so we're clear, the code mapping is really important because it's basically translating one language to another, isn't it? One set of words into a standard joint language.
Yes. So everyone might call the approved status something slightly different, and by doing that code mapping, it means that we'll all get one set of codes that we'll display on our system. So instead of having 5 different ways of saying approved or granted, we just say approved, for example. So yeah, that's exactly it. And the last one is more kind of post live, but once those spreadsheets are ready, you'll need to complete those for any of the fields that aren't in the back office systems at the moment and aren't in the planning portal. We'll just carry on business as usual for the LDD reporting requirements. But what you'll be able to do is, I think Peter mentioned earlier, is to download the information and then update those missing fields that aren't in our system. Or if you haven't got an API in place by the 22nd of June, then that spreadsheet will be used for populating new records with all the information in the interim whilst that API gets completed.
Simon, just to jump in here, Molly here, just to reiterate, the reason for this is, as you will recall in our pivot, that this is stage 1 of the project. So this need to enter information this way is a temporary solution, not our permanent one.
And not wanting to jump in as well, sorry. We will be running a further presentation and workshop, and probably even produce a YouTube video to show you how to fill that information in, so that there's no ambiguity about the process. Everybody will have a lot of clarity. So, next one, Simon.
So from our point of view, it's similar, really, that we'll be working with the back office suppliers. So we are putting pressure on them to get these installs out as soon as possible to you guys, so that we can start getting the data through. And a lot of them are just dependent on having that firewall rule added so they can complete the installation. So that's what we're doing at the moment with them. And again, similar to the code mapping, we'll work with you guys to make sure that the code mapping is correct and help with any gaps that there may be. Once we start pulling the data in, we'll just need to make sure that it's looking okay. So we'll work through any issues that may come up. And then, as we've already kind of mentioned, is about phase 1 of the dashboards, to make sure that we've got the kind of minimum requirements for go live, and then we will build on dashboards as we go and learn more. And that final one, again, is about that spreadsheet. So we're going to be producing the format of the spreadsheet soon, so that you guys are aware of what it's going to look like before you're going to have to start filling that in. Those are the main next steps. The only other 2 slides I've got, Peter, is those details that you'll need to open up on your firewall. So as you can see there, if you're a Uniform or Tescomi, Northgate, etc., that is the URL that you will need to open up on your firewall, or your IT will. I'm presuming we'll send these slides around later, so everyone doesn't need to necessarily scribble down all of it right at the moment.
And if anyone has direct queries about what they need to explain to their IT team about what needs to be open, please can you direct those to Simon directly, because they're written in gobbledygook for me. So from my point of view, the only other point was FTP details. Do you want to just explain what this is, Simon?
Yeah, so there's some boroughs at the moment that will be supplying data in CSV files. That won't be you guys needing to supply CSV files. That will be automatically produced out of the system based on scripts that the back office suppliers have written, and they'll be needing to be uploaded automatically on a nightly basis, which is something, again, IT can do to that location. So if you're on the Seller Accolade or Waltham Forest, you'll need to open a firewall to that location rather than the other ones.
Fantastic. I think that brings us on to the Q&A. So I know some of that's a bit techie, some of it's a bit planning in, some of it's kind of all over the place in terms of, but I think that kind of describes some of the challenge of this project, in that it requires a lot of agile thought as to how to address some of the challenges, and it's both a planning wide, a digital, and a straight IT project at the same time. So it's kind of taken on many of the different dimensions. Don't ask me why my webcam now makes me look as if I'm sitting in the dark, but if you just bear with me, I'll stop sharing the screen and we can go through the Q&A that we've had in so far. Oh no, we're back in the light. Good. So the first question was from Marina. What would be the time period that you will capture with the first spreadsheet? I don't think we've defined that yet, but Simon, do you have anything to say on that one from the work you've been doing?
Is that in regards to how far back in time for the LDD reporting?
Yeah, I think so. Was that the one where we were talking about trying to take a year's worth, just so that everybody's, because there are boroughs that are anything up to a year behind with the data.
So it does depend a little bit on the back office system potentially, but what we're asking them all to do is, like you say, Peter, to go back a year or the financial year, so that those records are then added to the system, so you won't need to add them to that spreadsheet. But that depends on how soon you can work with the borough to get that API installed, essentially.
So there will be a defined date, just so that we've got a consistent data set going backwards at some moment. But what that date is, it's yet to be clarified, but we will make sure that's 100% clear. The second one was some feedback from Peter Hollis. The Kibana looks good, but will they receive some training? Craig, you're willing to do some basic training, aren't you, on Kibana?
Yeah, happy to do the training on that. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the arrangements for that at the moment are, but yeah, we can train you up on that.
Perfect.
It's probably, sorry, Peter, it's probably also worth mentioning that there's loads and loads and loads of videos on YouTube and online around Kibana and using Kibana. So there's a lot of stuff online. It's quite an extensively used tool around the industry. So there is a lot of stuff online as well.
Thank you. Then Tom, your question, can I suggest that KPIs in table 12.1 of the new London plan are added as standard? That is our plan, actually. My dream is that I'll have a big television up in the entrance to City Hall with all of the London plan KPIs in being monitored in real time. When I achieve that, you never know, City Hall may be open again. But yeah, that way we will all have the same reports. Yeah, so that's the objective. But we're also very aware that there are boroughs that do other monitoring in respect to the KPIs in their own plans, and we're quite keen to support that. And actually, because built environment data is becoming so much more important, certainly around the climate challenge, and for boroughs in general around their economic development strategies, we're very aware that there will be other things that people want to monitor and report on in real time. And so we kind of like some of that insight as well, and like to support making sure that you can get the best out of this monitoring as well. And then Patrick, what date and time should we stop entering data into the current LDD? Well, at the moment, it's anything up to the 18th of June. You can enter it, and that would be midnight roughly on the 18th of June. I would discourage you from leaving it until the last moment, because say for example the server falls over on kind of the 16th, 15th, 16th. At the moment, we struggle to get people in and out of City Hall to restart any servers. So we just have to recognise that if it got that close to the margin, they would probably tell us to go away. So yeah, don't leave it to the last minute, I think is the message. And do you have a date when we'll be sending you the first spreadsheet format? It's likely to be available to you to download from the 19th of June. But once again, give us a day or so just in case. But you'll be able to download the spreadsheet yourself, complete the missing fields in the spreadsheet for the reportable schemes, and then send the spreadsheet straight back to us. And they probably all go through Alex, so that only one person has access to the log stash. And Alex will dump the spreadsheets in on a regular basis. I think that's all of the Q&A, unless I've missed any below. Nope, I think that's all of it. Has anyone else got any other questions? I'll give you kind of 20 seconds of Alex telling us why she hasn't put the shelf up in her kitchen yet. On that happy note, I think we'll call it a day. So thank you ever so much, everyone, for attending and staying while we were recording it as well. I will share the video using the same email group that I sent this out on, and I'll also pop it on LinkedIn and our YouTube channel as well, so that everyone can see it. But thank you, everyone, for attending. You can stop recording now. Stop recording. Press that stop button. No, it's still recording.